The alley smelled of damp concrete and desperation, my sneakers pounding against the uneven ground as shouts echoed behind me. I didn't dare look back. The mob's slurs cut through the Chicago dusk like knives, each one sharper than the last. I was 25, just a guy trying to live my truth, but tonight, that truth had painted a target on my back. My name's Ethan Carver, and I'd never run so fast in my life. It started at the Pride rally in Boys Town, where I'd stood with a rainbow flag, feeling invincible for once. The crowd had been electric, laughter, music, love in every color. But as night fell, a group of hecklers on the fringes grew bolder, their voices venomous. I'd ignored them, waving my flag higher, until one threw a bottle that shattered at my feet. The crowd scattered, and I bolted, their footsteps thundering after me. I ducked into an alley off Halsted Street, my heart hammering. The mob, 5, maybe 6 guys, screamed things I won't repeat, their rage fueled by the sight of me, a gay man who dared exist openly. I tripped over a crate, scraping my palms, and for a moment, I thought this was it. Then I heard a new voice, sharp and commanding, "Back off now!" I glanced back. A police officer, broad-shouldered and moving with purpose, stood between me and the mob. His badge glinted under a streetlight, his dark eyes scanning the group. "You don't want this kind of trouble," he said, his voice steady but laced with a warning. The mob hesitated, then scattered, their curses fading into the night. I was still catching my breath when he turned to me. "You okay?" he asked, his tone softer now. His name tag read C. Ramsey. Up close, he was maybe 30, with a jawline that could cut glass and a calm that felt like a lifeline. I nodded, unable to speak, my hands trembling. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you somewhere safe." He led me to his patrol car parked at the alley's mouth. The city hummed around us. Sirens, distant music, life going on like I hadn't just outrun hate. "I'm Caleb," he said, opening the passenger door. "You don't have to talk, but I'm here." I slid into the seat, still clutching my torn rainbow flag, and for the first time that night, I felt like I could breathe. Caleb drove me to a quiet diner on Clark Street, the kind with flickering neon signs and waitresses who called you Han. Over coffee, I told him my story. I'd grown up in a small Illinois town, where being gay meant whispers and closed doors. Moving to Chicago was supposed to be my fresh start, but tonight proved the world wasn't as open as I'd hoped. Caleb listened, his eyes never leaving mine, and when I finished, he leaned back, exhaling. "I've seen too many nights like this," he said. "People think they can hurt others just for being who they are. It's why I do this job, to stop that." His words carried weight, like he'd fought battles I couldn't imagine. I wanted to ask more, but my phone buzzed. Friends from the rally, worried sick. Caleb offered to drive me home, and I accepted, not ready to face the streets alone. My apartment was a cramped walk-up in Wicker Park, filled with books and half-finished paintings. Caleb walked me to the door, his presence steadying me. "You've got my number," he said, handing me a card. "Call if you need me." I watched him leave, his silhouette fading into the night, and something stirred in me. A mix of gratitude and something deeper, unnamed. The next morning, I woke to a text from an unknown number. "You okay today? Caleb." My heart skipped. I typed back a quick "yeah, thanks to you," and we started talking. Just small things at first, how I liked my coffee, his favorite spots in the city. But each message felt like a thread, pulling us closer. Days turned into weeks, and Caleb became a constant. We'd meet for coffee or walks along Lake Michigan, where the wind carried our laughter. He told me about growing up in a strict family in Ohio, where he'd learned to hide parts of himself to fit in. I'm not out, he admitted one night, his voice low. Not at work. It's complicated. I understood cops weren't always kind to their own, especially not gay ones. But with me, he was open, unguarded, and it made my chest ache in a way I hadn't felt before. One evening, we sat on a bench by the lake, the city skyline glittering across the water. I've never met anyone like you, Caleb said, his hand brushing mine. My pulse raced, but before I could respond, his radio crackled. A call about a disturbance nearby. He sighed, standing. Duty calls. Stay safe, Ethan. I watched him go, torn between wanting to pull him back and knowing he had a job to do. That night I couldn't sleep. Caleb was risking everything to protect people like me, but who protected him? I wanted to be that person, to stand by him the way he'd stood by me. But the world we lived in wasn't kind to men like us, and I wondered if love could survive the weight of it all. Weeks passed, and Caleb and I grew closer, our connection a quiet rebellion against the world's sharp edges. We'd steal moments in hidden corners of Chicago, dive bars in Logan Square, late-night walks through Grant Park, where we could be ourselves without eyes judging us. But the city wasn't always a safe haven, and I learned that the hard way. One night, I was leaving an art gallery in Pilsen, my latest painting under my arm. It was a piece I'd poured my heart into, a vibrant swirl of colors depicting two men embracing, their silhouettes glowing against a stormy sky. I titled it Defiant Love, inspired by Caleb. As I stepped onto the street, a group of guys loitered nearby, their eyes locking onto me. Nice painting, fag, one sneered, his voice dripping with venom. My stomach dropped, but I kept walking, gripping the canvas tighter. They followed. I quickened my pace, weaving through side streets, but their footsteps grew louder, their taunts sharper. I fumbled for my phone to call Caleb, but before I could, a hand grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. The painting hit the ground, the frame cracking. You think you can flaunt that shit here? The leader spat, his fist raised. Then, tires screeched. A patrol car skidded to a stop, and Caleb leapt out, his face a storm of fury and focus. Step back, he barked, positioning himself between me and the group. His hand rested on his holster, but his voice was enough to make them pause. You're done here. Walk away. The group muttered but backed off, disappearing into the night. Caleb knelt beside me, checking for injuries. Ethan, you hurt? His voice was tight, his eyes scanning me with a tenderness that made my chest ache. I'm fine, I whispered, picking up the broken painting. He helped me to the car, his hand steady on my back. At my apartment, he stayed, inspecting the cracked frame. This is beautiful, he said, tracing the painted figures. It's us, isn't it? I nodded, my throat tight. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, the world's cruelty couldn't touch us. But the incident left a mark. Caleb started checking on me more, his texts laced with worry. I could tell the job was wearing on him. Long shifts, hostile colleagues, the constant pressure to hide who he was. One night, over pizza in his small Rogers Park apartment, he opened up. I've wanted to be a cop since I was a kid, he said, staring at his beer. But some days, I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. The guys at the station, they'd turn on me if they knew. I reached for his hand. You're not alone, Caleb. You've got me. He squeezed my hand, his smile bittersweet. I know, but I can't keep dragging you into my mess. I wanted to argue, to tell him I'd face anything for him, but his phone buzzed. A call to a crime scene. He kissed my forehead and left, promising to text later. The next day, I decided to surprise him at the station with coffee, a small gesture to lift his spirits. But as I approached, I overheard two officers talking outside, their voices low and cruel. "Ramsey's been acting weird," one said. "Always sneaking off. Bet he's hiding something." My blood ran cold. Were they onto him? I left the coffee on a bench and texted Caleb to be careful. That night he called, his voice strained. "Ethan, I need to see you." We met at a quiet pier by Lake Michigan, the water black and endless. He looked exhausted, his uniform rumpled. "They're starting to ask questions," he said. "One of the guys saw us together at the diner." I brushed it off, but he trailed off, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." I took his hand, my heart pounding. "Then don't. Be who you are, Caleb. With me." His eyes searched mine, and for a moment I thought he'd agree. But he pulled away, shaking his head. "It's not that simple. If I come out, I could lose my job, my friends, everything." The words stung, but I saw the fear in his eyes. Not of me, but of a world that punished him for loving. We stood in silence, the waves crashing below. I wanted to fight for him, to show him we could face it together. But as he walked away, his shoulders hunched. I wondered if love was enough to bridge the gap between us. The tension between us grew. A tightrope stretched over a city that seemed to watch our every move. Caleb's fear of being outed at work clashed with my need for openness, and our stolen moments started to feel like borrowed time. Yet, every time I saw him, my heart refused to let go. One rainy afternoon, I was at a community center in Uptown, helping organize a youth art workshop for queer kids. The kids' laughter filled the room, their drawings bold and unapologetic. I thought of Caleb, how he'd love their courage. As I cleaned up, my phone buzzed. A news alert about a shooting in a nearby gay bar. My stomach dropped. I texted Caleb, "Are you okay?" "Heard about the shooting." No response. Hours passed and panic set in. I called, but it went to voicemail. Finally, at midnight, he texted, "I'm fine. On duty. Talk soon." Relief flooded me, but the distance in his words cut deep. I needed to see him, to know we were still us. I headed to his precinct in Lincoln Park, my heart pounding as I walked past officers who eyed me with suspicion. Caleb was outside, leaning against his patrol car, his face drawn. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" he asked, glancing around nervously. I didn't care who saw. "I was worried sick," I said, my voice breaking. "You can't just shut me out." He sighed, pulling me into a nearby alley. "I'm sorry," he said. "The shooting, it's got everyone on edge." I was there, securing the scene. It was bad. He told me about the bar, how the shooter had targeted it for its pride flags. "I kept thinking about you," he admitted, his voice raw. "If you'd been there." He didn't finish, but his eyes said everything. I reached for him, but he stepped back. "Not here," he whispered. "Please." I left, frustration burning in my chest. I understood his fear, but it felt like he was slipping away. The next day, I threw myself into my art, painting a mural on a community wall in Andersonville. It was two hands clasped, one wearing a badge, the other holding a paintbrush, with the words "Love Wins" scrawled across it. A crowd gathered, some cheering, others muttering. I didn't care until I saw Caleb watching from across the street. He crossed over, his expression unreadable. "This is bold," he said, nodding at the mural. "Dangerous, too." I met his gaze. "So is hiding who you are." For a moment, he looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. "Meet me tonight," he said. "My place." That evening, his apartment felt different, tenser, like a storm was brewing. He poured us wine, his hands unsteady. "I've been thinking," he said, "about us, about everything." He told me he'd been offered a transfer to a quieter precinct in Evanston, where he might have a chance to start over. But it means leaving the city, he said. Leaving you. The words hit like a punch. You're running, I said, my voice shaking. You think a new place will make it easier to hide? He flinched but didn't deny it. I'm trying to protect us both, he said. If I stay and they find out about me, about us, it could get ugly. I stood, anger and love warring inside me. I don't want to be your secret, Caleb. I want to be your life. He reached for me, but I pulled away, leaving before I said something I'd regret. The city felt colder as I walked home, the weight of his choice pressing down on me. I wanted to fight for him, but I couldn't force him to be brave. Not when the world made it so hard. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. I'm sorry. Meet me at the lake tonight. See, my heart lifted, then sank. Was this a goodbye? Or a chance to fix things? I spent the day painting, trying to pour my hope and fear onto the canvas. As dusk fell, I headed to the lake, unsure of what I'd find. The lake was a mirror of stars when I arrived, the Chicago skyline glowing in the distance. Caleb stood by the pier, his silhouette sharp against the water. He turned as I approached, his face a mix of resolve and vulnerability. I'm not good at this, he said, his voice low, but I need to try. He took my hand, leading me to a bench. I've been scared, he admitted. Not just of losing my job, but of losing myself. I thought if I kept hiding, I could keep everything else safe. He paused, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. But then I met you, and hiding stopped making sense. My heart raced, but I stayed quiet, letting him speak. I turned down the transfer, he said. I'm staying, and I'm done hiding, at least with you. He pulled me close, his lips finding mine in a kiss that felt like a promise. The world melted away, and for that moment, it was just us, fearless and whole. But reality crept back. The next day, Caleb faced his precinct. He didn't announce anything, but he stopped dodging questions about his personal life. Whispers spread, and some officers grew cold, their glances sharp. One, a burly guy named Malone, cornered him after a shift. Heard you've got a boyfriend, he sneered. Caleb stood tall, his jaw set. Yeah, and Malone backed off, but the tension lingered. I saw the toll it took. Caleb's smiles were rarer, his shoulders heavier. I tried to support him, inviting him to art events, cooking dinner in my tiny kitchen. One night, as we washed dishes together, he laughed. A real, unguarded laugh. And I knew we were fighting for something worth it. Then came the rally. A massive pride event was planned in Millennium Park, and I was helping with the art installations. Caleb volunteered to work security, a bold move for a cop not fully out. As we set up, I painted a banner with "Love is our shield," the same words from my alley chase. Caleb smiled when he saw it, squeezing my hand. The rally was vibrant, thousands strong, but tension simmered. A group of protesters gathered at the edges, their signs hateful. Caleb stayed close, his eyes scanning the crowd. When a protester threw a rock, narrowly missing a kid, Caleb moved fast, restraining the guy with calm precision. The crowd cheered, but I saw the strain in his face. He was protecting us, but at what cost? That night, we collapsed on my couch, exhausted but alive. I'm proud of you, I said, my head on his chest. He kissed my hair. I'm trying, Ethan. For you. For us. But as we drifted to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that our fight wasn't over. The next morning, Caleb got a call from his sergeant. They want me at a disciplinary meeting, he said, his voice tight. Someone filed a complaint. They're saying I'm disrupting unit cohesion. My stomach sank. Because of us? He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. We prepared for the meeting together, going over his record, his years of service. I painted while he paced, my brushstrokes angry. "You don't deserve this," I said. He stopped, looking at me. "Neither do you. But we're in this together, right?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Always." The meeting was tomorrow, and neither of us knew what it would bring. But as we sat together, our hands entwined, I felt a strength I hadn't before. We were building something not just for us, but for everyone who'd ever had to hide. The disciplinary meeting loomed like a storm cloud. Caleb spent the night before at my apartment, barely sleeping. I stayed up with him, sketching in the dim light, trying to keep him grounded. "Whatever happens," I said, "we'll face it together." He nodded, but his eyes were distant, haunted by what might come. The precinct was a cold, gray building, its walls lined with photos of stern-faced officers. I waited outside, my heart pounding as Caleb walked in. Hours passed, each minute heavier than the last. When he finally emerged, his face was unreadable. "They're suspending me," he said quietly, "pending an investigation. They claim my personal conduct is a liability." I felt like I'd been punched. "This is because you're with me?" I said, my voice shaking. He shook his head. "It's because they're scared of change. But I'm not backing down." His resolve sparked something in me, a fire to fight back. We decided to take a stand. I reached out to the community center, rallying support from activists and allies. We organized a protest outside the precinct, demanding fairness for Caleb. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds showed up, holding signs with messages like "Protect those who protect us." I painted a new mural on a nearby wall, Caleb's badge intertwined with a rainbow, the words "Justice for all" beneath it. Caleb stood beside me, nervous but proud. "You did this," he whispered. I shook my head. "We did this." The protest drew media attention, and soon, the story spread: Chicago's cop, punished for loving who he loved. Public pressure mounted, and the precinct started to feel the heat. But not everyone was on our side. Threats came. Anonymous calls to my phone, slurs scrawled on my apartment door. Caleb insisted on staying with me, his protective instincts kicking in. One night, as we lay in bed, he traced circles on my back. "I never thought I'd be here," he said. "Fighting like this, loving like this." I kissed him, my heart full. "You're braver than you know." The investigation dragged on, and Caleb was stuck on desk duty, his badge tarnished in the eyes of some colleagues. But he kept showing up, refusing to hide. I threw myself into my art, creating pieces that told our story. Two men, one a cop, one an artist, defying a world that tried to break them. A gallery in Lakeview offered me a solo show, and I dedicated it to Caleb, calling it Unshamed. The night of the show, Caleb was there, in plain clothes, his smile brighter than I'd seen in weeks. The gallery was packed, the walls alive with my paintings. Our love, our fight, our hope. A reporter approached, asking Caleb about the suspension. He took a deep breath. "I'm a cop and I'm gay," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not ashamed of either." The room erupted in applause, and I felt tears prick my eyes. But the victory was short-lived. Later that night, as we left the gallery, a car slowed beside us. A window rolled down, and a voice yelled, "You'll pay for this, Ramsey." Something flew out, a brick, crashing through my painting in the gallery window. Caleb pulled me down, shielding me as glass rained around us. We were shaken but unhurt. The police arrived, but their questions felt cold, like we were the problem. Caleb held my hand, refusing to let go. "We're not done," he said, his voice fierce. I nodded, knowing this was bigger than us now. We were fighting for every kid who felt alone, every person who'd been told their love was wrong. The brick through the gallery window was a turning point. Caleb and I knew we couldn't stay silent. We met with lawyers from a local LGBTQ advocacy group who took on his case pro bono. The investigation into his suspension was riddled with bias, they argued, and the public was behind us. Petitions circulated, and op-eds praised Caleb's courage. But the fight was far from over. Caleb moved in with me, both for safety and because we couldn't stand being apart. My apartment became our sanctuary, filled with his books and my canvases. We'd cook together, laugh over bad TV, and plan our next steps. But the threats didn't stop. One night, my car was vandalized. The word freak scratched into the hood. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't waver. They want us scared, he said. We won't give them that. The hearing for his reinstatement was set for a crisp October morning. We prepared meticulously, gathering character witnesses, colleagues who'd seen Caleb's bravery, community members he'd helped. I painted a new piece for the occasion, a portrait of Caleb in his uniform, a rainbow flag draped over his shoulder. I hung it outside the hearing room, a silent statement. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The panel, 3 senior officers, grilled Caleb on everything from his conduct to his personal choices. He answered with calm conviction, detailing his service record, his actions at the Pride rally, the bar shooting, the gallery. I'm a good cop, he said, and I'm a gay man. Those aren't mutually exclusive. I sat in the back, my heart swelling with pride. The decision came a week later, reinstatement with a formal apology from the precinct. The news spread, and the community celebrated. We threw a party at the community center, the kids from my art workshop dancing around us. Caleb pulled me into a slow dance, whispering, "We made it." I laughed, tears in my eyes. Not yet, but we're close. Life settled into a new rhythm. Caleb returned to work, now openly himself, though some colleagues kept their distance. I kept painting, my art gaining attention for its raw honesty. We faced challenges, dirty looks, whispered slurs, but we faced them together. One night, as we walked through Boys Town, a kid approached, maybe 16, shy and nervous. "You're the cop from the news," he said to Caleb. "You make me feel less alone." Caleb smiled, handing him a card. "You're never alone. Call me if you need me." That moment stayed with us. We started volunteering at the community center, mentoring queer youth, sharing our story. Caleb grew more confident, his badge no longer a weight but a symbol of change. I painted a mural for the center. 2 figures, one with a badge, one with a paintbrush, standing under a sky of stars, with "Love is our shield" written in bold. One evening, a year after the alley chase, Caleb took me back to the lake. The city sparkled, the air crisp. He knelt, pulling out a simple silver ring. "Ethan Carver," he said, his voice steady. "I've been chased, threatened, and scared out of my mind, but loving you is the bravest thing I've ever done. Marry me." I laughed, tears streaming, and said yes before he could finish. We kissed, the world fading, our love louder than any hate. Our wedding was small, in a garden in Hyde Park, surrounded by friends, allies, and kids from the center. My mural was the backdrop, Caleb's badge pinned proudly to his suit. As we vowed to love and protect each other, I thought of that first night, running through the streets, and the man who'd stood between me and danger. He was still that man, but now he was mine. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were living, unashamed, unbreakable. Our love had been forged in fire, and it would light the way for others. As we danced under the stars, I knew this was the life we'd fought for, and it was worth every step.